Birthdays aren't supposed to feel like funerals for 30-year marriages. They should be moments of joy, of celebration. But here I was, sitting at the table, staring at divorce papers adorned with a garish bow on top, wrapped in silver gift paper. Frank's sense of humor had always been odd, but this felt cruel. Just days ago, my spouse, the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, told me he wanted to start a new life. My name is AsA, and this was happening on my 55th birthday. Frank, with his signature calmness, stated, "I think it's best if we handle this amicably." The words came out with the same detached tone he used when discussing engineering problems with clients, matter-of-fact, almost cold. My lawyer, he informed me, had already prepared a reasonable deal after their discussion. The nerve of him, and there we were, surrounded by laughter, clinking glasses, and conversations, in a bustling restaurant that felt like it belonged to someone else's world. Not mine. A server hovered nearby, likely puzzled by the woman at table 12 who was gripping an unopened gift wrap as if it were the only thing holding her together. Just. That word stung. Just, I repeated, my voice shaking with disbelief. You call this fair after ambushing me during dinner? After 30 years of marriage? I watched as Frank subtly adjusted his collar, a nervous tic I had come to recognize long ago. It was the same gesture he always made when he knew things were about to get messy. I couldn't help but wonder, how had we gotten here? I believed that a public setting would help maintain decorum. Civil? Nearby tables stared at me as I laughed. Divorce papers for dessert, perhaps? Elsie, please speak more quietly. People are looking at each other. Permit them. The legs of my chair scraped the hardwood as I pushed it back. Frank, 30 years. How do you thank me after I've helped you with your job, cooked your meals, and ironed your clothing for 30 years? He lowered his voice and leaned forward. I've provided for all of your needs, financial stability and a lovely home, all except loyalty. Before I could stop them, the words escaped my lips. His expression tensed. Loyalty is not the issue here. We are no longer together. I'm sure you noticed. I had noticed, of course. The new scent he had begun wearing 6 months prior, the late hours at work, and the enigmatic business travels. I was consciously blind, not foolish. Is there another person? Frank's quiet was sufficient response. Who is she? That is insignificant at the moment. Pulling out crisp cash, he reached for his wallet. Let's avoid making this any more ugly than it has to be. With trembling hands, I got up. Frank, you're correct about one thing. It's not necessary for this to be ugly. I grabbed my glass of water. It might be amazing. Before he could react, the water struck his face, causing the diners close to gasp. I noticed something I had never seen before. Terror in his eyes as it trickled down his pricey shirt. I said, "Happy birthday," and threw the empty glass onto the table. Frank, let your lawyer know that I will be calling. Leaving behind 30 years of marriage and a very wet, soon-to-be ex-husband, I left that restaurant with a swagger. Megan was probably phoning to wish me a happy birthday when my phone buzzed in my purse. Our daughter was still unaware. No one did. My temper snapped in the parking lot. I struggled with my car keys while tears burned in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them drop. Did Frank desire friendly? Before packaging my sadness in a present, he ought to have considered that. That absurd beau was mocking me as the divorce papers sat in my passenger seat. My head was already buzzing with questions as I turned on the engine. Where would I reside? How would I explain things to our friends? What would Megan think? Something else, though, that seemed perilously similar to retaliation, simmered beneath the hurt and anxiety. Frank believed he could start again with whoever she was and throw me away like yesterday's newspaper. He assumed I would roll over, accept his just compensation, and vanish without a trace. He was going to find out how mistaken he was. I left the restaurant where my marriage ended behind as I pulled out of the parking lot. There was pain, worry, and uncertainty ahead, but there was also hope. And maybe, just maybe, the delicious flavor of justice. Indeed, happy birthday to me. Megan paced my kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile like angry punctuation, her face contorted with wrath. What did he do? As I sat at the bar, I observed her and wondered how my daughter had developed into such a strong advocate. That garish ribbon was now broken and forgotten, and the divorce papers were lying between us. I traced the rim of my coffee mug and remarked, "Your father thinks he's being generous. I'm being offered the house by him, the home you both own. How generous he was." Megan slowed her pace, assuming the demeanor of a marketing executive. "What about the vacation home, the investments, and his pension? These documents state that he keeps them for his retirement preparations." His intentions for retirement? Ha, Megan might have broken glass with her laugh. "I'm going to give him a call." "Don't, Megan." However, she was already using her phone and prodding the screen. Frank's voice filled the kitchen when the phone went to speaker. "I'm at a meeting, Megan. Stop it. We must discuss what you did to Mom." Through the speaker came a deep sigh. "I'm treating this like an adult, as is your mother. Please don't get involved. I'd appreciate it." "Don't get involved?" Around the phone, Megan's knuckles turned white. "On her birthday? You served her divorce papers in a restaurant. It was a regulated setting, Dad. It was mean. What about this settlement? It's offensive. The agreement is more than reasonable." He spoke in that patronizing tone I had come to despise. "It's been 30 years since your mother last worked. She feels secure in the house." Megan yelled, "The house gives you an easy out. How is the money you have been transferring recently? Mom doesn't know about the new accounts?" The ensuing hush was deafening. I sat up straight in my chair and closely examined my daughter's face. "Which accounts?" Megan added, her eyes fixed on the phone. "Last month, while he was assisting you with your taxes, he noticed some irregularities. Dad, would you like to explain those?" "It was not your husband's place to examine my private finances." Something sharper had taken the edge out of Frank's condescending voice. "Furthermore, you have no authority to meddle in your mother's and my affairs. You obviously aren't looking out for her interests, so someone else needs to. I'm done talking about this." The line died. Megan was too cautious as she put the phone down. "There's something you must know, Mom. Lucas discovered—" "Not quite yet." I got to my feet, and I was surprised at how steady my voice was. "I need a lawyer first. After that, we may discuss what Lucas discovered. Someone who specializes in high-conflict divorces is who I am." She handed a business card across the counter after taking it out. "She's the best, but she's pricey." I picked up the card and rubbed the embossed letters with my thumb. "If I contest the settlement, your father will be quite upset." "Excellent." Megan had a toothy smile. "Let him be angry. When he underestimates you, let him see what occurs." I recognized myself in my daughter's age range. Tenacious, fierce, and prepared to face the world. I had lost that fire somewhere along the line. Or perhaps I would have simply buried it under years of cautious peacekeeping and compromise. Megan's expression softened as she replied, "There's something else. Until this is resolved, Lucas and I would like you to remain with us. The guest room is prepared already. I couldn't force it. It isn't oppressive. Family is involved." She squeezed my hand as she reached across the counter. "In addition, Dad will be furious that you're not waiting for him to do something." I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since that horrible birthday meal. Frank believed he had me in a tight spot, reduced to the status of a cast-off wife who took whatever scraps he dared to give. Prior to my transformation as Mrs. Frank Anderson, he had forgotten who I was. It's time to remind him. I noticed that my hands were no longer shaking when I took up the divorce papers. "Give the attorney a call. Call a meeting." I looked directly into Megan's eyes and saw my own resolve mirrored back. "Let's demonstrate to your father what occurs when he interprets generosity as weakness." The picture collapsed like a bomb into my lawyer's desk. It was hidden in Frank's cloud storage where Lucas had discovered it. At what appeared to be a hotel bar, my spouse and an unfamiliar woman were deeply involved. 3 months ago in Phoenix, during what Frank had described as a crucial business conference, the date stamp appeared. With his customary coolness laced with contempt, Lucas said, "Her name is Grace Matthews." She was 35 years old and a consultant at Frank's business before, to his retirement. The fact that they were 20 years younger than me struck me like a physical blow. Her black, shiny hair, her well-groomed hands on my husband's arm, and the way she gazed at him as if he were her future all caught my attention. Megan continued, "There's more," and took out her tablet. "In the past 6 months, she has been named to the boards of 3 internet companies that Frank has ties to." Catherine Walsh, my lawyer, looked closely at the data. "What about the accounts you mentioned?" Lucas displayed a number of spreadsheets. "Frank has been transferring large sums of money into foreign accounts. Began roughly 8 months ago, at the same time as Grace Matthews started her quick ascent to fame in the field." With a hollow voice, I answered, "He's been planning this, the business trips, the late hours, and the covert phone conversations. He was advancing her career in addition to having an affair." Catherine tapped quickly. "With your marital assets, everything is altered by this. In addition to being unfair, the settlement he offered also dishonest. I recalled Frank asking me to sign documents for what he called retirement planning at our kitchen table. I had never questioned or doubted him in the slightest. "What should we do next?" Megan squeezed my hand and asked. Catherine had a sly smile. "On every account, we request emergency injunctions. After that, we ask a forensic accountant to track down every money he has transferred. Most significantly, she tapped the picture. We explicitly state that we are aware of Grace. It buzzed on my phone. Frank texted, 'We must speak. Tonight's dinner?' I showed them the message and added, 'He knows we're here. He's attempting to exert control.'" "Good," said Catherine. "Let him believe that he can. Have dinner with him. Keep a record of everything." She gave me a stack of papers first, though. "Put your signature on these. They will be filed this afternoon." I later saw Frank fidgeting with his wedding ring in a fancy restaurant he had selected. Despite everything, he continued to wear it. His stay just before he lied. He began, "LCB reasonable. You're not like this antagonistic attitude, no?" Savoring the occasion, I took a drink of my wine. "Frank, how would you know who I am? Grace Matthews has kept you too busy to notice." He lost the color in his face. "Who informed you? Is it important? What you've been doing with our money is what counts. Our future, I can clarify. The appointees to the board, the accounts that are located abroad, the hotel rooms." Every question was like a slap to him. "Don't explain yourself to the forensic accountant." His voice lowered to a hoarse whisper as he leaned closer. "You're doing something wrong. I offered you a pleasant life and a fresh start. Don't discard that out of spite." "Hatred?" I slowly looked into his eyes. "No, Frank, it's not spite. Justice is served here." He growled, "You'll get nothing. I'll fight you all the way through." "As if you battled for Grace's board seats?" I dropped my napkin on the table and got up. "What would the ethics committees think of it, I wonder?" His eyes flashed with fear. Like at my birthday dinner, I was truly afraid. I didn't just notice it this time, though. I enjoyed it. I picked up my bag and replied, "You taught me something, Frank. I learned from you that sometimes those we trust the most are the ones who deserve it the least. I'll keep that lesson in mind. You will too." Knowing that his well-thought-out future was falling apart piece by piece, I left him there, staring at his unfinished supper. Every word, every threat, every admission was captured on my phone in my purse. The game was different now. Frank believed he was dealing with the same obedient wife who had spent 30 years prioritizing his needs, who had signed documents without reading them, and who had believed all of the lies. He was going to find out how mistaken. At 3 in the morning, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. A single line of text, then attachments. "You ought to be aware of your obstacles." I took pictures of Frank and Grace at several occasions, each one getting more personal. Then the papers arrived. Documents pertaining to incorporation, property records, and bank statements. Like a poisonous thread, Grace's name was intertwined throughout Frank's business dealings. As I sent everything to Catherine, my hands trembled. I couldn't sleep anymore, so I strolled into Megan and Lucas's kitchen, where the nocturnal solitude wasn't as harsh as it was in my makeshift bedroom. "Mom?" With a laptop under his arm, Lucas emerged from the doorway. "I listened to you." Pointing to my phone, I said, "Anonymous email. We're being fed information by someone." Pulling up files, he placed his laptop on the counter. I have been monitoring Frank's online activity. You must look at something else. The screen displayed a real estate listing for a contemporary penthouse in the heart of the city that had been bought 3 months prior via a shell corporation. It was the wastefully lavish kind of house that Frank always claimed. It gets worse, Lucas said. Verify the date of move-in. Frank had insisted that we complete perhaps years. Lucas paused and said, There's more. The shell business? One of the named co-owners is Grace. Suddenly, the kitchen felt cramped. Grabbing my automobile keys, I did so. Where are you going, Mom? While my house is still mine, to view it. Lucas reached for his coat. I'll accompany you. There was silence on the road. Our family home appeared out of the shadows. Its once familiar contour now seemed fictitious, like a stage set concealing unpleasant realities. My key was still functional. Everything inside appeared to be normal. 30 years of life together, gathered memories and family images. But there was a problem. As I went upstairs, I discovered it was the study. Frank had never allowed anyone inside his personal space. He had dubbed it his work refuge. I knew better now. Even though the door was locked, Lucas quickly unlocked it. Frank's normally spotless desk was in disarray inside, drawers left open, papers all over the place. Lucas looked at the debris and stated, He's been here tonight. Searching for a particular item, I began going through the documents. After years of planning Frank's life, his muscle memory took control. Investment documents and bank statements. I had never seen a bottle of pricey scotch half empty before. Then I discovered it, buried beneath tax returns. Grace's handwritten letter. Everything's ready, Frank. The planks are fastened. The accounts are in good condition. We'll be in complete control after the divorce. We've been planning this for a long time. But she won't know. Your meticulous preparation of me is going to come to fruition. The words were hazy. The leather of Frank's chair was still warm from his recent visit, and I sat down heavily. Mom? Lucas's voice sounded distant. I responded in a voice that sounded odd to me. He didn't just betray me. I was used by him. I oversaw his life, provided for him, and assisted him in moving up the corporate ladder during all those years. I only served as a stepping stone. Lucas hastily collected the documents while using his phone to snap pictures. This is proof. This is useful for Catherine. No. Something clear and icy crystallized in my chest as I got to my feet. Not quite yet. There's a reason Frank is searching for these documents. He finds value in them. What are you contemplating? It's time to cease playing defensive, in my opinion. I took Frank's bottle of scotch and looked at it. Grace learned everything she knows about business from him, but I learned everything I know about him from him. Outside, a car door banged. The windows were scoured by headlights. He's returned, Lucas muttered. I picked up the important documents and letters, leaving the others lying around. Excellent. Allow him to ponder what's absent. I know, so let him worry about it. As Frank's key turned in the front lock, we slid out the rear door. Lucas gave me a worried look in the car. Are you all right? Frank's house and mine vanished from view in the rearview mirror. No, but I will be, because I can now clearly identify the type of game we are playing, and I was prepared to play to win for the first time. The scent of potential and turpentine filled the art studio. Megan had argued that I needed something for myself, so she had made me take these lessons. She was essentially saying that I needed a place to go where I wasn't in her guest room, where I was obsessed with Frank's treachery. After looking at my painting, my instructor remarked, "Your strokes are too controlled. Give up the accuracy. Experience the feeling. Not as easy as it seems." 30 years of being the ideal corporate wife, suppressing my emotions and weighing my words. It becomes into a routine. It buzzed on my phone, a message from an unidentified number. In half an hour, we will meet at Riverside Cafe. Come by yourself. Grace. G. Red paint was smeared across the canvas by my shaking hands, similar to a wound. As I reached for my bag, I informed the instructor that I had to go. The cafe was crowded. She made a wise decision. Enough people to feel secure, enough noise to be private. Grace resembled her pictures as she sat at a corner table, younger than my spouse, poised and polished. "Elsie, thank you for coming." Her smile was professional and well-practiced. I believed it was time for us to meet. I took a seat and observed that she had positioned herself to keep an eye on the door. Why? Because if we allow Frank to, he will ruin us both. I didn't anticipate that. It's funny, you two looked very comfortable based on the letters I discovered. Letters are not always truthful. Across the table, she slipped a folder. He set me up with these board appointments, for example. They have strings attached, proof of securities fraud. I kept my hands off the folder. Why tell me this? Since he is putting me in a position to be blamed? Her flawless poise faltered a little. The accounts that are located abroad. The erratic transactions, it's all in my name. I'll be the scapegoat when the SEC looks into it, which they will. The parts clicked into place as I finished, and Frank left, clean. With your reputation and my money. Neither of us realized how good he was at this game. She bent over. But, in tandem, "Give up," I extended my hand. "I'm not purchasing whatever you're selling. You enabled him to deceive me." "Yes, I did. Don't deny. No justification. I'm now assisting you in destroying him. Elsie, take the folder. Make use of it." Once more my phone buzzed. This time, Frank. "You're where?" "We must discuss the house paperwork." The message briefly caught Grace's attention. He's becoming desperate. Next Tuesday, the SEC will begin its preliminary investigation. I got up without touching the folder. "Take care of your own mess," she called after me. "He'll win. He always prevails." The autumn air felt full of possibilities outside. I gave Catherine a call. When she responded, I remarked, "Grace Matthews just tried to make a deal. Something to do with fraud, evidence, and SEC investigations." Catherine cautioned, "Don't touch anything she offers. It might be a trap." "I am aware." Through the cafe window, I observed Grace and saw another of Frank's neatly placed pawns rather than a cunning homewrecker. But what if we gave her the impression that I did? I stood in front of a brand new canvas that evening during open studio hours for my art class. The teacher's remarks reverberated. Give up the accuracy, experience the feeling. I reflected on Grace's despair, Frank's treachery, and 30 years condensed into secret accounts and court filings. Unconsciously, I moved my brush, smearing dark hues across white space. "Mom?" Behind me, Megan's voice. "That's fierce." Seeing my painting through her eyes, I took a step back. Anger, chaos, and suffering were shown. Not exact, not in control, not secure. "I got a call from Frank today." Megan spoke softly. "He is concerned for you. Indicates that your mind is clouded." I genuinely and harshly laughed. It's not my lucidity that should worry him. Another message from Grace appeared on my phone. "There is not much time left. How would you respond?" I looked at my artwork, letting all of my anger out at last. I then typed, "Meet me tomorrow at the same location. Bring everything you own." "Mom?" Megan put her hand on my arm. "What plans do you have?" I took up my brush once again and applied a final red streak across the canvas. "I'm tired of being a pawn, my love. Now's the moment to act like a queen." In the harsh light of the studio, the paint appeared to be blood. Excellent. Someone was going to bleed, one way or another. Catherine's law firm's boardroom had the atmosphere of a graveyard. Both Grace and Frank wore faces of studied concern as they sat opposite me. The SEC docs were like landmines between us. "This is a mistake, Elsie," Frank added in that same condescending tone. "You're allowing feelings to influence your decisions." I looked for signs of the person I believed I knew, and I examined the man I had loved for 30 years. "Feelings? Like the one where you forged my signature on those documents of transfer?" His facade gave up a little. "That is a grave charge. These files are serious in every way." I shoved the papers in his direction. Money laundering, securities fraud, an inventive accounting that would make Bernie Madoff wince. Grace stirred uneasily. Frank's hand wavered in her direction, then paused. I understood the gesture. I added softly, "Even after she has assisted me in constructing this case against you, you are still attempting to shield her." He jerked his gaze at Grace, who was very pale. "What?" "Frank, Don't be startled." My hands trembled beneath the table, but my voice remained firm. "Did you truly believe that she would take the blame on your behalf? That she would put herself in danger for love? Grace?" There was menace in his voice. Her mask slipped into place as she straightened. "Frank, it's business. I learned that from you." He could have frozen hell with the look he gave her. Then he grinned. He smiled the same way he had on my birthday when he served me divorce papers. He stood and said, "Interesting play. However, you've missed something important." After taking out his phone and giving it a quick touch, he placed it on the table. "Catherine, check your email." My lawyer opened her laptop and scowled. My stomach dropped when she took a sharp inhale. "What is it?" I inquired. Catherine revealed slowly that he had filed a countersuit, claiming that you were aware of and gave your approval for every financial activity with supporting documentation. Not possible. Frank seamlessly transitioned into the renovation contracts. The minutes of the charitable board. You signed all those documents without reading them, letting your devoted hubby take care of the technicalities. His grin got bigger. "Everything has your signature, sweetheart, and they're all real, unlike mine." The room whirled a little. Years of unquestioning trust, of signing anything he presented to me, of being the helpful wife. "I got you to go down with me." Elsie, no. My young, unsuspecting protege, who was misled by my cunning, soon-to-be ex-wife, will accompany me through this storm. He meticulously collected his paperwork. "The board members are familiar with me. What is simpler for them to believe? They will. That a resentful lady is out for vengeance, not that scam was planned by their trustworthy coworker." Grace sat motionless. Her aspirational future was clearly collapsing. "I said, you're bluffing. Give me a try." He made his way to the entrance, then stopped. "And Elsie, too?" The art studio gave a call. "Your latest has them worried. Violent works. It seems that my concerned phone calls on your mental health had a significant impact." With dreadful finality, the door shut behind him. "He has considered every possibility." Numbly, Grace said. "He always does." Already, Catherine was typing furiously. Damage control mode is activated. But her recommendations for a strategy were hardly audible to me. Frank's smile was all I could see. He had worn the identical one to our wedding. When Megan was born, I had played the ideal corporate wife at innumerable dinner gatherings. It buzzed on my phone. "How was the meeting?" Megan asked. I was unable to respond. I was unable to inform her that her father had just outwitted us all, refused to acknowledge that my own demise had been facilitated by 30 years of trust. "Now what should we do?" Grace questioned, appearing just as confused as I was. With wobbly legs, I got to my feet. I must breathe. I saw my reflection in a window in the hallway. Hair with a gray stripe. Years of laughing at Frank's jokes had earned these lines, donning Frank's selections, being the wife of Frank. Once more, my phone buzzed. Frank texted, "You must sign the house papers by tomorrow. Let's avoid creating more mess than is." I touched the cool glass to my forehead. Observing the city below go about its daily business as usual, I had no idea that my entire world was collapsing. I then stood up straight, recalling my most recent painting. Anger, chaos, and something else. It appeared to be freedom. Frank had considered every possibility. Nearly anything. Artificial cheer filled the annual tech industry gala. It was the ideal setting for what was going to happen. I straightened my black evening dress. Frank always said that one was too daring, and observed him as he worked the space. Like a trophy, Gray sat by his side. Lucas showed up next to me with a glass of champagne. His laptop has a USB drive installed. Megan has prepared the presentation. I looked at my phone. Catherine has one new message. "Give the signal, the SEC team is waiting." I looked across the room at Frank. His smile wavered a little. He stepped away from his group. He was walking over. "I'm surprised to see you here, Elsie." "Frank, I'm still on the charity board. Do you recall? You made me sign all those documents?" He clenched his jaw. "Let's have a private conversation. In fact," I pointed to the stage, "I think your retirement speech is about to begin." Let me not keep you." He looked at my face. He had spent 30 years looking for towels. I didn't give him anything. Frank was summoned to the stage by the chairman. As he positioned himself behind the podium, the audience erupted in applause. From the front row, Grace was beaming. He started, "Distinguished colleagues," after working in this field for 30 years. Behind him, the presentation screen wavered. His meticulously planned slides vanished, replaced by pictures, emails, and bank records. Every piece of evidence we had collected, now he was on show for his peers. Frank stumbled over his words. Looking about, his face turned white as ash. "Frank, keep going!" Loud enough for everyone to hear, I yelled. "Share your retirement plans with them, the accounts that are located abroad. The appointments to the board were altered. You intended to blame your mistress for the fraud." Grace jerked to her feet, her flawless poise crumbling. "You promised to keep me safe." "Grace, he's lying. He acts in that manner." I walked over to the stage. "He built his business with my signatures, utilized your drive to fabricate a victim for him, and believed that he could get rid of us both whenever it was convenient for him." The doors were guarded by security personnel, not hotel security, agents of the SEC. Frank also spotted them. He had the podium in his hands. To the astonished audience, he declared, "This is a mistake. My spouse is ill. I interrupted to say that your wife has been collaborating with federal investigators for weeks. That you trusted those signatures? In a federal fraud inquiry, any document dated after the start of your affair is now proof of coercion." Whispers filled the room. Board members avoided Frank as if he were infectious. Agents blocked Grace's way as she slipped for the exit. Frank growled, but his voice trembled. "You can't prove anything. Look at your laptop, sweetie. The private trading one you use? With complete access, a forensic accountant can uncover incredible things." His gaze expanded. At last he got it. "Frank, I learned a lot from you. All those years of witnessing you control others. Observing you as you construct your house of cards." I grinned. His grin, the same one he'd worn when delivering divorce papers to me. I gained knowledge. Agents from the SEC moved in. In an attempt to save herself, Grace was already crying uncontrollably. Members of the board gathered with their attorneys. What about Frank? Frank stood still, witnessing the breakdown of 30 years of meticulous preparation. As agents walked up to the podium, he stated softly, "The House papers. They were never signed by you." "No, I didn't. I took off my wedding band and set it on the podium. Think of it as my retirement present to you." They handcuffed him and dragged him away. Flashing phones and frightened coworkers in the past, Megan stood with her back straight. She is a strong, if not character-driven daughter of her father, beyond the life we'd constructed with meticulous signatures and falsehoods. Lucas stroked my arm in the midst of the turmoil. "Are you all right?" With hunched shoulders, I saw Frank slip through the doors. The giant that had ruled my existence was no more. I expected this to feel more like a win. "Perhaps it's not about winning," he said. "Perhaps it has to do with survival." It buzzed on my phone. Catherine attested that everything was going according to plan. The legal apparatus would continue to churn. There would be justice. Additionally, I was free. It wasn't particularly sweet. It wasn't bitter, though. The taste was that of truth. Similar to strength. Similar to tomorrow. Visitors strolled between my paintings as the gallery hummed with the excitement of the opening night. Every canvas conveyed a fragment of my narrative. Fury, betrayal, rebirth. However, the patrons simply perceived bold strokes that conveyed abstract emotion. Signatures is the name of the series. I listened to the curator give a group an explanation. Identity and power are explored in each piece. My throat, I stroked the plain silver pendant. After the divorce settlement, I made my first purchase using my own funds. Until his trial, Frank's assets were placed on hold. However, my portion had been guaranteed. And something far more precious. My liberty. Megan pointed to a specific artwork and stated, "That one is my favorite." Red splatters intertwined with dark lines. However, a tiny gold light appeared in the middle. The day Frank's plea agreement was finalized, I painted it. Mine, I confessed. I'm not sure why, though. Yes, I do. She gave my hand a squeeze. You let the light in on the first one. We noticed a disturbance close to the entrance. Grace appeared less polished than when she gave the testimony that had led to Frank's conviction. When she saw me, she ignored the interested looks and stepped forward. When she got to us, I said, "I wasn't sure you'd come. I nearly didn't." Before us, she examined the painting, the one when darkness gave way to gold. The board positions were cancelled, each and every one, I am aware. Was it worthwhile, setting everything on fire? I gave her question a lot of thought. In 10 years, ask me again. She understood what I couldn't quite put into words and nodded. We had both won and lost in our own ways. She started to walk away but stopped. Frank inquired about you. In a prison, you told him what? That an art show is being held. Her former smile reappeared like a ghost. That would be meaningless to him, wouldn't it? When she was gone, Lucas showed up carrying champagne. Sold one more. The huge portion from when you were angry? I chuckled. In fact, I laughed. Are we referring to that? Megan joked. Better than the month Mom went nuclear on Dad. The curator came over, grinning. Someone wants to talk about commissioning a series for their corporate offices, Elsie. Go, Megan said. Be a genius. As I walked throughout the gallery, I noticed how I suddenly held myself differently. No more cautious actions, not another measured word. She was no longer the lady who had signed documents without reading them. My most recent nameless piece was up close to the rear wall. Its colors were somewhere in the middle, not dark or light like the others, real, ambiguous, and complex, similar to life following retaliation. It buzzed on my phone. Catherine sent a message. Frank's appeal was denied by the judge. It's truly over. Over. What a straightforward term for such a complex reality. A young woman stood looking thoughtfully at my untitled piece. As I got closer, she replied, I'm not sure if it's about endings or beginnings. I thought about Frank in his prison cell, Grace starting over, Megan and Lucas's unwavering support, and my own reflection, which was at last identifiable again. As I stroked my silver pendant, perhaps both, I said. Perhaps that's the idea. Slowly she nodded. This is a unique technique, the critic remarked, his voice lingering on the words. It's as if you're repeatedly writing your name in colors rather than letters throughout the entire painting. I couldn't help but grin as I thought back to all the years spent signing Frank's documents, writing his name next to mine, allowing my signature to become nothing more than a tool, a weapon in his hands, a mark of compliance I didn't realize I had given away. It's often necessary to sign your name 1,000 times before you can truly recall who you are, I said, my voice softer now, as the memory of it all hit me with unexpected force. As I spoke, I noticed the subtle dimming of the gallery lights, a sign that opening night was drawing to a close. Tomorrow, after Megan and Lucas took me out to supper, I would return to my studio, where blank canvases awaited me like an untouched future, full of possibilities. From Frank, I had learned a lot about power, about signs, meticulous planning, and the subtle art of covert motivations. But one lesson he had never understood. The most powerful signature isn't always written down. Sometimes it's shown in other ways. In light piercing through darkness, in truth shattering lies, or in the simple, profound act of standing in a gallery where your own voice is heard, fully and finally, for the first time. If you want to experience more stories of personal transformation and moments of revelation, make sure to subscribe to the SoraBook channel. More powerful journeys await in the next video, and you won't want to miss a single one.